be a war crime, depending on what you do with the prisoner. But taking a prisoner of war is not a. He's dead, isn't he? No, I think the person that they're dragging is alive. I just can't tell from the. I can't tell from the video if this is like the actual prisoner, or if it's a dead person that they're dragging. Hamas and Israel both, however, do this thing where they will retrieve, dead bodies as well. Both sides participate in this, and I don't know if that falls under desecration. I think it probably does, where they will capture dead bodies as well and use them as a bargaining chip as well. I'm pretty sure that would be. I'm certain that would fall under. That definitely falls under a war crime. It would constitute for desecration of a dead soldier. Concerned your chat is weirdly happy about taking a prisoner. I mean, it's a prisoner of war, and regardless of Hamas's domestic politics or anything like that, or fundamentalism or anything that they believe in, they are currently engaging in a defensive war against a genocidal state that is engaging in an offensive ethnic cleansing campaign. Capturing a soldier or killing a soldier in that regard is perfectly permissible and just, and literally is a better alternative to killing them, as a matter of fact. Prisoners of war have long often been considered a better means of dealing with conflict than actually killing prisoners, or rather killing soldiers when they're in the act of war, because that is a quicker way to draw the end of the conflict. It's also a massive propaganda blow to what Israel has been trying to cultivate. Israel's been trying to claim that they have done a phenomenal job dealing with Hamas. Israel has been trying to claim that they have dealt with Hamas in the north, dealt with Hamas in the south. The only place where Hamas remains is actually simply Rafah. I just think we all know the IDF soldiers are going to get tortured. I wouldn't be so sure about that. However, yes, under detainment, every single Palestinian gets tortured in some way, shape, or form. But as far as we understand, every single hostage that has been taken, to the best of the ability of the resistance groups, have been defended, literally including putting their own, like Hamas, Al-Qassam Brigade bodies above piles of mattresses in intense bombing campaigns in an effort to save the lives of the hostages. Remember, the rational choice in this circumstance is obviously to make sure that your bargaining chip doesn't perish. This is not to say that they value human life above all else or anything like that. If you do your very best, like if you literally put your life on the line specifically to take hostages, it would make no sense to, kill them. It would make no sense to actually deny them medical care. It is your only form of leverage. Prisoners of war also is the same. Abu Ubaidah just finished a speech saying at noon of Saturday they managed to ambush an IDF platoon north of Gaza in a tunnel, capturing and injuring the entire platoon. I doubt that they took over an entire platoon. I don't know. I don't know what happened. Um, but the IDF is denying the abduction of the soldier. Says Volodymyr Zelensky. You might want to mention the Hamas on the mattresses thing came from a hostage testimony, so you can debunk clip chimps in real time. Yes, the Al Qassam Brigade soldiers putting their bodies on top of mattresses in periods of intense IDF bombing is not something that Hamas claims. It's something that came directly from a hostage testimony, a hostage that was released that talked about the conditions as they were held hostage by Hamas. Anyway, in any case, taking a prisoner of war during an ethnic cleansing campaign the Al Qassam brigades are engaging in defensive posture against an ethnic cleansing campaign is going to lead to a lot of political complications in Israel, which is precisely the reason why I suspect the Israeli government would immediately deny it, because it's a massive blow to the confidence of the colonial entity in this regard. It is a massive blow to the public, to the collective conscience of Israelis that have only heard that the war efforts are, albeit a little tumultuous, still going pretty well. They're defeating Hamas left and right, rarely ever showcasing the atrocities on the ground in Gaza, while simultaneously taking ownership over the death toll, only to say that they have killed thousands, tens of thousands of Palestinian terrorists. Okay? It is humiliating. Al Jazeera Arabic claims multiple soldiers were taken captive in Jabalia ambush. Once again, we do not know the exact details yet. And we perhaps will not know the exact details for some time. Okay? It is going to take some time. Hasan, I find you so odd, though. Like, why say it like that? Say it like what? Hasan, you are the most shameless, evil, disgusting person on this platform. Someday you will pay for the lies and racism you spread on the internet. Please tell me this is an ad break debate and not genuinely an opinion that you hold. Please tell me it's bait. With a name like Bazinga 550, I suspect that you are just entirely too early to serve the serious. You think I'm the most shameless, evil, disgusting person on this platform. Someday I will pay for the lies and racism I've spread on the internet. There are literal child pornographers and Nazis, like unabashed, shameless Nazi child pornographers. And you think I am the most racist, evil, disgusting person? You're an evil person and you know this, Hasan. First of all, no evil person thinks that they are evil. That's number one. So the idea that, like, even if I was an evil person, that I would acknowledge that as the truth would be ridiculous. Just in and of itself. Like, that's a ridiculous thing, a ridiculous assertion to make. But I would love to explore this just a little bit further and ask you why you think I am an evil person. Like, is there a tangible reason as to why you think I'm an evil person, or is it simply vibes based that you arrived at such a serious conviction, a firmly held belief that you have? Tell me then why you hate white people so much. You think I'm the most evil person online because you think I hate white people? Brother, I'm white. Look at me. Look. Gaze into my Caucasian eyes. You do hate white people. I really hope that this was a elaborate ruse to serve the top of the hour ad break. I did. But I fear this is simply a lost soul. No, chatter, I do not hate white people. I do hate white supremacists, though. I am white myself. This chat is probably a kid Hassan. I don't think a kid has this much hatred in their heart. Do you? I have to ask you, Bazinga. Do you not recognize me as white? And if that is the case, you have to describe exactly what you think is white and how I do not fall under the category of white, while simultaneously maintaining the position that whiteness is not a socio-political construct, but instead that can change throughout time, but instead a firm, genetic, inalienable, unchangeable quality. Because the reality is you can't have both of those opinions at the same time. Therein lies the problem. I will be honest, I do not know if you are white. This chatter is not baiting for the top of the hour ad break, which is coming right now, by the way. And I do not care to be honest. You can be any race. Okay. Continue. Is this really the best the D community? It's not. I don't even want to say. Is this one of the 5,000 bots from yesterday? I don't think so, even though he does present himself like a bot. Some of your biggest drama farmers made a new video about you and Frogan. They probably came from there. it is a little bit concerning that every new round of drama somehow leads to dumber and dumber arguments that these people present. It actually is shocking. Like, it's shocking only because I genuinely thought, like, oh, it can't get stupider than this. And then I sit there, corrected by history. It's just like, it is circling the drain, yes. The arguments get stupider and stupider and stupider. And I don't know how. Every single time I'm like, how will it get dumber? And then I'm shocked that an even dumber argument presents itself. This should be a cause for concern for many that frequent these communities. One should ask themselves, why are our arguments getting dumber and dumber by the minute? Perhaps some self-reflection is a necessity. When you succumb to reactionary thinking and you are simply motivated by spite, you have strong convictions that are not born out of any real disagreement, nothing tangible, you become no different than the very same reactionary conservative Republican Party defenders that you consider to be better than. Especially when you make arguments about how I hate white people. Concerning. Let's continue with the Betrayal of the German Revolution Part 2 by Bestie Marx.
Approach of its leadership. The military high command were confident that any uprising in Berlin could be broken up by troops. But that confidence was short-lived, as more and more soldiers joined the revolting crowds carrying red flags. Liebknecht led a group of soldiers to seize the imperial palace and left independent Emil Eichhorn seize the police headquarters. On November 9th, 6 days after Kiel, the revolution had overtaken Berlin. The old ruling class was desperate, so Prince Max finally handed the chancellor position to Friedrich Ebert on November 9th. The SPD leadership tried its very best to show fake support to the uprising to slowly but surely suffocate it. For instance, their paper Vorwärts called for a general strike, 5 hours after it had already begun. Philipp Scheidemann was eating a meal in the Reichstag restaurant when deputies ran toward him, begging him to calm down the masses who were outside the Reichstag building. He also apparently learned that a few meters away, Liebknecht intended to proclaim a German Soviet Republic. He had to do something quickly to not hand the initiative to the revolutionaries. After he reluctantly went to the balcony, he looked at an angry crowd carrying rifles and red flags. He told them that the socialist Friedrich Ebert is now the chancellor, that socialism had won. But the crowd was still angry, so fearing that the Kaiser's abdication wasn't enough to calm the masses, he proclaimed, quote, "Long live the German Republic," and massive applause followed. Ebert wasn't happy at all with this move, yelling at him, quote, "You have no right to proclaim the Republic." Ebert didn't want the Republic, he wanted order, and he hoped for the monarchy to stay, even after Prince Max gave it up by abdicating. However, little would he know that Scheidemann had been just in time. A few meters away on the same November 9th, Karl Liebknecht, speaking at a rally in front of the Russian embassy, proclaimed the Republic himself. Quote, "Down with the Hohenzollerns, long live the Social Republic of Germany. The day of liberty has dawned. I proclaim the Free Socialist Republic of all Germans. We extend our hand to them and ask them to complete the world revolution. Those of you who want the world revolution, raise your hands." And thousands of hands rose up. If the German Revolution's most prominent names are Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht, The counter-revolution bears the name of Friedrich Ebert and Gustav Noske. Gustav Noske was a party functionary that had become a prominent deputy. An enemy of proletarian internationalism, he had declared at the Reichstag during World War II that socialists were not, quote, vagabonds without a fatherland. He had tried to convince the bourgeois parties to give the German workers good reasons to become soldiers and thus give their lives in the imperialist slaughter. Noske declared himself a supporter of Oswald Spengler's proto.
This is also part of the reason why I personally, as someone living in the United States of America, am very, very skeptical of those who unconditionally ride for American imperialism while masquerading as socialists themselves or as radical, progressive figures themselves, even if they don't use the term socialism. Okay? I do not take issue with people who categorize themselves as social democrats in general. Okay? But I do draw a red line when someone claims that they are pro-NATO and pro-American empire. Out of what? Out of fear that if America is not engaging in global dominance, then a much scarier foreign country will take America's place and engage in global dominance. And then we'll see, because they will do to us what we've done to them, but tenfold. This inherently is a reactionary ideology, one only born out of being comfortable in the position of global dominance. Okay? When you personally recognize that America is the hegemonic superpower and you simultaneously like that position and claim that that is simply better, albeit marginally, but simply better than the possibility of some other scary country dominating the globe in the way that the United States of America dominates the globe, all of a sudden you arrive at exactly this level, at exactly this kind of ideology. And before people say you are pro-NATO and pro-State Department regarding Ukraine, bro, you have demonstrated your inability to comprehend what I am stating in terms of Ukraine. Saying that Ukraine has a worthy cause of emancipation against an invading force does not mean that I am pro-NATO or pro-State Department regarding Ukraine. As a matter of fact, the reasons as to why I criticize the NATO, pro-NATO, and pro-State Department positions has led many, especially in this group of people, to declare me a pro-Russian simp, someone who is pro-Vladimir Putin, or someone who just hates America. The very same counter-revolutionaries, the modern version of the counter-revolutionary groups that we are looking at right now are the very same people who consistently tell me that I am pro-Russia and I must hate America and I must leave America because I hate America. NATO Andy say you push Z. Z Andy say you are pro-NATO. How the fuck can you be pro-NATO and too pro-Russia at the same time? I am not and never will be pro-NATO, nor am I pro-American State Department. If I was, I would love Vladimir Putin. I would hug and kiss him because his actions in Ukraine, both violent, were simultaneously a gift to the NATO admirals and the generals and the military-industrial complex. Vladimir Putin is also not a socialist at all. Vladimir Putin is a kleptocrat. He is an oligarch. He is a dictator who runs a right-wing capitalist oligarch kleptocracy. He is in no way, shape, or form a revolutionary figure. His interests in Ukraine are not born out of a revolutionary desire to liberate the Ukrainian working class. You have to be fucking insane to suspect that. Okay? You are one of the most outspoken anti-NATO leftist content creators out there and have been for many years now. I know. The only aspect of the USSR that Vladimir Putin likes is an unprincipled understanding of the USSR as like a global superpower, maybe even an empire, which it was not. But that doesn't change the equation or the dynamic in the minds of those who are, the Duginists and Putin himself.
Fascist Prussian socialism. Hitler wrote about Noske in 1933, saying he is, quote, an oak among these social democratic plants. When the news of the Kiel uprising reached the imperial government, Prince Max sent a reliable social democrat to calm the revolutionary fervor, and that man was Gustav Noske. Aside from a few politically conscious workers, the majority of the revolting masses were still confused about the various currents and what differentiates them. Another consequence of not constituting the Communist Party at an earlier point. Yes, the majority Social Democrats had supported the war, but now they were seemingly on their side. Maybe they had acknowledged their mistakes. Many striking workers were not socialists, and they did not yet differentiate between the parties calling themselves socialist. Many of them did not believe, or rather did not want to believe, that the SPD leadership was determined to defend the old system. Hence, the councils were not exclusively made up of revolutionary socialists. For instance, German sociologist Max Weber was part of the Workers' Council of Heidelberg, and he was pleasantly surprised that most members there were moderate liberals. Nonetheless, people were radicalizing quickly, and that process had to be reversed. Noske, a cunning and talented politician, eventually managed to sway the people to his side. He was so successful in doing so that the crowds proclaimed him governor of Kiel. Noske promised to meet the most urgent demands of the workers and soldiers of Kiel, such as pardons of mutineers in return for a more calm atmosphere. The next day, Noske called Berlin, saying he, quote, had only one hope, a voluntary return to order under social democratic leadership. Then the rebellion would collapse. Noske slowly but surely restored authority of the former officers and the police, and Prince Max was full of admiration for what Noske had accomplished at Kiel. Quote, the man has done superhuman things. Prince Max later wrote in his memoirs, quote, the fate of Germany depended on Ebert repeating his party comrades' achievement on a large scale, that is, rolling back the movement throughout the country. Appeasement through minor concessions and false promises. This trick was to be successful in undermining countless working-class movements in the coming decades all over the world. At the time, very few anticipated the tragedy that was about to ensue. It is reasonable to assume that not even the ruling classes themselves were confident they could turn things around. In the 7 days after November the 3rd, revolution was a certainty for much of the working class. The German monarchy had collapsed, and there was no parliament with any claim to power. The only organs with any authority were the workers' and soldiers' councils, and the new government in power called itself socialist, so it is no surprise that many regarded the revolution as completed. Unfortunately, it wasn't. For a revolution to be completed, toppling the old order is not enough. Establishing a new one is the other, in many ways, even harder part. But the masses who had managed to take over city after city had no cohesive plan for what to do with that power. The revolution had been largely spontaneous. It had no centralized leadership, but the counter-revolution did. Now, the trick of Noske in Kiel had to be repeated in many other places, and most crucially in Berlin, where the revolutionary movement had arrived on November 9th. Time was running out. As the new chancellor of a non-existing government, Friedrich Ebert planned to, quote, steer the revolution into orderly channels and defend the rule of law from anarchy. But these maneuvers were not enough to defeat the Marxists, because the workers' and soldiers' councils were still the main authority throughout the German Reich. They had to be won over, and so it was crucial for the MSPD to build a coalition with the USPD to form an executive based on the councils. The independents themselves had not full control over the councils, and so it was in the interest of the USPD right wing to form unity with the MSPD. Hugo Haase was especially interested in social democratic unity because power was shifting quickly to the left wing of the independents, led by Georg Ledebour and the Spartakists. The two parties wanted to meet as quickly as possible, but because Haase wasn't in Berlin that day, and because Haase was so crucial for the MSPD, this decisive meeting was postponed to the next day on November 10th.
Hasan, read this. I feel like you are caught playing a role without actually seeing what you're looking at. You've seen nothing live involving Hamas, but accept information at face value when we are. Clearly, in an environment where Israel, U.S. government, and nearly all news sources have lied. You already know this, so why just accept a video of a guy in a hall? IDF fakes videos all the time. You also know this. I don't think you understand. I literally said, we don't know. There's not enough information present at this time that gives me full-blown confirmation that Hamas has actually taken hostages. I think you either didn't hear that part or you didn't focus on that. I don't know what happened there, but I openly stated we do not know at this moment whether or not Hamas has actually taken any Israeli hostages. I simply talked about if it is true, what kind of blow that would have on public sentiment. I also further talked about I talked about the principles of war and rules of war and how prisoners of war is fair play. Not only is it perfectly allowed, but prisoners of war are technically better than just killing all enemy combatants, especially because it oftentimes pushes the more powerful occupying entity to make concessions due to the political pressure that it causes. Homie, not just talking about today, kind of hard to, but all that in. I don't think you understand. You're just talking about today. Unless you personally are talking about something else that I have mentioned. And if that's the case, then explain to me what you have a difference in opinion on in terms of my coverage, and we can talk about it. If I were Putin, I wouldn't want U.S. business interests in my own neighborhood. All I'm saying is I've sat here and just seen info accepted at face value. No. Here's what we're done with, okay? We're done with this vague posturing, okay? I'm tired of having to try and address genuine schizophrenic hallucinations of people, okay? I need you to fucking tell me exactly something that I've said that you take serious issue with, okay? Something tangible, something that I can, explain to you if you've misunderstood, or maybe something that I've said wrong that I will immediately correct. Every single one of these detractors that comes in here never articulate a tangible position. It is always fucking vibes. Hasan, you are evil. Why am I evil? Because you hate white people. Am I white? Oh, well, I don't know, and I don't even care. You just hate white people, and I hate you for it. Hasan, you take information at face value. Why are you immediately agreeing with Hamas every single time? It's like, what are you talking about? Here's an instance where I'm not actually agreeing with the Hamas side immediately or taking it at face value, and as a matter of fact, being skeptical of it until there's more evidence that is presented. No, that's not what I meant. I meant like in general, you're doing that. Okay, tell me an instance where I have done that, and we can address it. They are saying you take Israel's word at face value. No, I definitely don't do that. So I don't know why he's saying that. And I don't think that that's what he's trying to say anyway. Chatters never give coherent, tangible disagreements and simply offer just vague gesturing at feelings. It is? What? Okay. You ignore unreasonable people? I don't. I sometimes try to reason with unreasonable people, hoping that they will actually make a decent point.
The destiny of the future of Germany was to be determined in this decisive battle on Sunday. The Spartakists and left independents made their own preparations, but when the meeting started, the revolutionaries found themselves in an unexpected situation. On the previous day, the Right Social Democrats mobilized their whole party machine to build up their own councils made up of hand-picked leaders. The propaganda they deployed was clever. They exploited the utopian wish of many to see a united socialist leadership. So they had used their massive resources to put out thousands of leaflets calling for unity and demanding, quote, no fratricidal strife. On 5 p.m., 3,000 delegates of the Workers' and Soldiers' Councils, which had been elected on the same day, met in Circus Busch in Berlin.
Our mouse is going to be live soon, by the way, and then I'll dive into Russ with her.
The Social Democrats made sure that the soldiers' delegates, where they had a bigger influence, came early and would be seated at the front rows, and the workers at the back on the balconies. The soldiers, who were not as well versed in politics, were given the notion that anyone who criticized the need for unity would be a wrecker and a saboteur. The procedure was a mess. Anytime someone from the left wing spoke, they were overshadowed by unity slogans. When Ebert spoke, he met the mood by calling for socialist unity. When Liebknecht spoke, the crowd shouted, quote, unity, unity, and even threatened him with their guns. But still, he maintained his stance just like he had done throughout his political life and warned the delegates that the Social Democrats, quote, are going along with the revolution today, but were its enemies the day before yesterday. The counter-revolution is already underway. It is already in action. It is already among us. But this was not enough. The majority got its way by their calls for parity. The calls for parity were unreasonable. The USPD had outnumbered the MSPD in the factories, so in order to elect a fair committee, the independents would have had to be represented by a majority of delegates. But with the calls for parity and with the crowds on their side, they managed to push through an executive composed of 12 soldiers' delegates, majority Social Democrats or people under their influence, and 12 workers' delegates, 6 from the MSPD and 6 from the USPD. A joint, quote, revolutionary government, unquote, was formed on November 10th, composed of 3 members from each of the 2 Social Democratic parties, Ebert, Scheidemann, and Landsberg from the MSPD, Hase, Dittmann, and Emil Barth from the USPD. The newly formed government was imbued with a revolutionary veneer, the naming inspired by the Russian.
Not trying to fight or argue with you. I think you've done a good job with what we have had thrown at us every day, but no one has verified anything from Hamas since October. What are you talking about, dude? What do you mean? First of all, how can you verify something conclusively from the Hamas side? Are there people on the ground? Is there like a working, functioning media apparatus there? Or is Gaza currently victim to an ethnic cleansing campaign? That's number one. Number two, you are still refusing to be specific. You are not mentioning an instance where I have unconditionally taken like whatever Hamas has said without a shred of skepticism. Okay? The only thing you can do is basically look at their own, look at their statements so far and match it with the reality that we know of after the fact. Like, for example, the Gazan Health Ministry, the Palestinian Health Ministry, run by Hamas, they say. And yet, historically, the Palestinian Health Ministry has never given wrong information, has never talked about casualty numbers in too liberal of a term. They've never exaggerated casualty numbers. They've always, according to the UN and according to the US State Department and according to the Israeli occupying forces, their own internal numbers correspond to the Hamas-run Palestinian Health Ministry's casualty reports. So I have no reason to outright deny them at all and consider that to be genocide denial, because that is how genocide denial works. If that's what you are pointing to, then that's one thing. You read out a chatter's comment saying Al Jazeera verified that Hamas took multiple IDF soldiers, and I think chatters think you were saying that and not just reading out a comment. Yeah, but I also very quickly repeated once again. It's no different than North Korean state media. What? North Korean state media on what? If the North Korean state media, if there was active genocide currently occurring in North Korea, and the North Korean state media throughout that time was offering consistently accurate casualty numbers, and independent groups like the United Nations, numerous academics that conduct rigorous third-party investigations after the fact that historically. Oh, you mean it's no different than saying North Korean state media? Okay. Yeah, in an effort to say like they're in the wrong, if that's what you mean. But regardless, if North Korean state media was uniquely consistent in times of conflict, then yes, I would be more charitable to their casualty reporting.